Chris Nelson, this is a mutual admiration society. I've always respected you and your family, very distinguished family in the fishing business. And when Dave told me that I was going to be the recipient, I did start crying in the car. I was on the way to Maryland. I had to look up and find out who nominated me. I was kind of selfish, and it was Chris Nelson. So it was particularly meaningful to me in that his father did receive this award. So one of the early ones, actually. So it was just the Charlie Lyles Award at that time. And Porky, you're right. I'm not any of those things. You know, I'm not in. I never was in enforcement. I'm never on a golf council like Ed. I've never been a commissioner. And I said, well, I wonder what in the world. And then it dawned on me, having come to this meeting for 48 years, I said, this is the first time the Lyle Simpson has been given for perfect attendance.
Perfect attendance.
I was really young when I met Charlie Lyles, and he was very savvy about politics and fishery management, because it was all in the early stages of development. And he gave us a lot of advice, and to me personally, he gave me a lot of guidance. I was a really young man when I became the first chairman of the MAC. It was called the Menhaden Management Development Movement, whatever. And he was not a man of a lot of words, but when Charlie spoke, you really needed to hear what he had to say. Larry Simpson was younger than me, but like Charlie, Larry didn't have a lot of words, but he had very good guidance. He was very politically savvy also in the later stages of management. So whenever Larry had something to say, you needed to listen. But Larry also had a brighter side to him that you might not know. When we'd have a Menhaden advisory committee meeting, Larry would always come in, like Dave does, and sit on the periphery of the tables. And one time, Dr. Condrey of LSU had done a bycatch study on Menhaden. And he was so thrilled. He was telling us how he pulled a Jack Crevalle, or Crevalle Jack, however you like to call it, out of the middle of a set of about 50 tons of Menhaden. He gutted the fish, and he said, and the stomach contents were all Menhaden. Larry raised his hand. He got the floor. He said, Richard, you know, if I stood outside of McDonald's and gutted the first person coming out the door, it'd probably have hamburgers gutted. So it really is an honor to receive this award, named for two great gentlemen. And so back to why I'm standing here, I looked over the reasons that Dave talked about, and it dawned on me that Mike Wazan from the oyster industry, there's some shrimp people, some other people, and I said, you know, really, I think the commissioners felt it was time to honor somebody in the Menhaden industry. And so I'd like to take a little more time than a lot of you might want, but most of you here in the early stages of our plan development were either not born, or you were children, or you were in school. There's only a few people here that might know some of the things I'm going to bring up. So if you'll bear with me, in the early 70s, there were a lot of concerns on the minds of the Menhaden companies. We started fishing way too early in April, sometimes late March in Mississippi, and then we fished way into November in Texas and Louisiana when the fish were trying to move offshore to spawn. And we just felt like that was not a good thing, so we approached National Marine Fisheries Service and said, look, if you were to set a season on Menhaden, what dates would you have? And so they came back to us, and the dates were pretty close to what all the Menhaden companies felt would be a good season to keep us from starting too early and fishing too late. And so we went to the Louisiana legislature, actually the commission, and they set the Menhaden season from the third Monday in April to the second Tuesday in October. It's kind of strange, but we lived with that for a number of years. And after several iterations and Mississippi following suit, we still have that season today. And what's important that I want you to understand is that was an industry asking the states for a season, not the states telling us we had to have a season. Another concern was the growing number of vessels in the Gulf. At a National Fish Meal and Oil Association meeting, that was a trade association we had in Williamsburg, we went to the then Deputy Director of NOAA, back then he was called the National Fisheries Service still. His His name was Robert Shoney, and we asked him to implement limited entry on the Gulf of Menhaden. They came back and said that the feds could not do that. So over a number of years, purely as a gentleman's agreement, the industry came to grips with it, and since the early 80s, the number of vessels have continued to drop. Well, they're pretty level now, but anyway, we dropped the number of vessels, which greatly reduced fishing effort. And again, that was initiated by the industry and not by the states. At that same time, there was a great concern we had because foreign fishing was occurring quite a bit in the United States, and we were worried that some trawlers would come in midwater trawl in the off season and catch up a lot of the spawning stock, and we might not know about it, and in the subsequent coastal harvest we would end up really damaging the stock. So our industry actually went and lobbied Congress. We testified in congressional hearings to extend the U.S. economic zone to 200 miles. And of course, that was followed quickly in 1976 by the passage of the Magnuson-Stevens Act, which ended up creating the Fishery Management Councils. We were trying to decide as to what avenue we should use for management. And Charlie Lyles came to us, and I can tell you that he was very adamant that we should go the route of the interjurisdictional fisheries. Let the states manage us and not the feds. And I think that was a very good choice. And the management committee put together and in 1977 finalized the Menhaden Management Plan, which I believe was the first one, followed shortly by the shrimp plan. Our meetings were very business oriented, but we had some lighter moments, not like the one that Larry did gutting the hamburgers, but we had 5 companies and 3 of them had plants on the Atlantic coast. And so they would fly to the airport. So the logical venue for us was to meet at the airport Hilton in New Orleans. And Standard Products in Moss Point, Mississippi their representative was named Jim Nelson. And he lived in Kilmarnock, Virginia. And he told us about how some neighbors of his decided they were going to come to New Orleans for their 25th wedding anniversary. And they knew that Jim came to New Orleans all the time. So they asked Jim where he liked to eat. What was his favorite restaurant? He said, well, I always eat at the airport Hilton. Well, you can imagine, they stayed at the Royal Orleans, right in the heart of the French Quarter. They took, on the actual date of their anniversary, they took a 30-minute cab ride to the airport, a 30-minute cab ride back, and Jim reported they never spoke to him again. Another concurrent issue in the 70s was the exploitation of red drum. Most of you now probably remember Paul Prudhomme had developed blackened drum, and prices for red drum skyrocketed. So the Menhaden industry leaders got together, and another gentleman's agreement, we decided that if a vessel captain or an airplane pilot set or directed a set on a school of red drum, they would be terminated or suspended. And I think Ed Swindell, you probably remember that actually happened with one captain of a boat. So there's a lot of things going on at that time that the industry was initiating, and you all know how hard it is to do data collection. In 1978, the industry implemented a voluntary collection of catch statistics in the way of our Captain's Daily Fishing Report. And the first year that it was implemented, over 75% of all sets made in the Gulf of Mexico were recorded. Today, it's regularly at or near 100%, and NOAA reports that the field accuracy of those is in excess of 95%. I'm happy I was able to serve as chairman of the MAC for the first 2 years of plan implementation, as well as 3 more times that they mentioned. And other chairmen include J.Y. Christmas and Corky Perrette, both of whom were Lyle Simpson Award winners, or recipients. I don't know if we won this thing. I think the commission approved his nomination. And then since the initial plan in 1977, there have been 5 revisions, and the Gulf of Menhaden has endured several CDARs and a GDAR. Fecundity is rising, fishing mortality is declining, and stock biomass is increasing. I believe the early leaders of this industry set the stage for the word sustainability when it was not even a catchword yet. The industry really initiated a lot, and I'm standing here as a representative, but there are plenty of other people that it would be equally deserving. So a lot went on in the early management years, and I believe the industry rose to the occasion. We now have new owners in the harvesting and processing section. They and the state agency managers will face issues of climate change, rising sea level, ecosystem shifts, and feeding the world. And I challenge them to respect the Gulf Menhaden fishery as we did. And I think you'll find that for generations to come, that fishery will remain healthy. And that's when I need the Coast Guard. I can't say enough about the personal rewards I received.